since the game ended to this morning, but have you had a chance to even process it and process that?
Yeah, I mean, you process how poorly you play. You know, that's something that you can't hide from. And when it comes to a screeching halt like this, it's a tough thing. You said the same thing to the players. You know, it's like being on a ride, a bumpy ride, but you enjoy it. And when it comes to a screeching halt, it's like everybody just flies all over the place, and you're just trying to figure out what just happened because it just comes to a stop that you don't expect. And that part is hard, but you know, it is part of the NBA season. 29 teams are going to feel that at some point. And processing it in detail is something that takes time, but you know, right now I think that's what everybody feels.
When you just look at after the trade was made in that time frame, and then Kevin losing the 3 weeks because he was hurt, did it feel like a rush that whole time of trying to get all of it to work, even going into the playoffs and even during the playoffs?
You know what, I can't use that as an excuse. You know what I mean? It's my job to put it together. You can ask questions and say, did we have enough time? All those things may be valid, but I don't think so. I think it's my job to make it work and make guys comfortable. And you know, at the end of the day, most of that is offensive driven. It shouldn't affect your defense. It shouldn't affect transition. And so, from my perspective, we had enough time to get things done, and we just didn't.
Monty, as a coach, what are you trying to achieve on a day like today with the advice?
Just talking to the guys, thanking everybody for the focus that we had. We had a number of distractions starting last summer. I mean, you could name the things that came up over the course of the summer and then into the season. A lot of changes, and our guys just maintained our culture. The coaches brought it every day, and you want to make sure everybody knows how much that is important and how much we have to further that and cement it with whomever comes in here that might be new. That's something that we have to hold on to. And then you just want to get a chance to see everybody after the emotion settle a little bit before everybody goes their separate ways, or you know, you're on a different schedule now. So you get a chance to talk a little bit with them, kind of process what happened, and then go forward.
Is this day something you get used to in the league at a certain point, with just the amount of uncertainty that comes into it, which guys will be back, which guys won't be back, things like that?
I don't think you ever get used to it, to be honest with you. I think it's something that it's unique every year because of the team you have, the experiences that come up over the course of the season, and then how you end. You know, it makes it unique. No one ever wants to end this way, and when you do, again, it just makes it hard, but it also makes it a unique hard, and I'm not quite sure you ever get used to it.
Coach, I remember last year when I asked this question about where you felt the team could improve, you had mentioned, Cam and Mikhail handling the ball a little bit more. Is there anything with this group that sticks out in terms of could have done this better, we need to do this moving forward?
I mean, the things that I talked about last year, they did happen. You know, those guys got better, and I think going forward, it's going to take more time to evaluate that because we have such a different team, and the style of play has changed, and I'm not quite sure that that's something that we all expected. You know, so that's the part I have to try to address. Like, what is the style of play going to be going forward? Because it wasn't as 0.5-ish in ball movement and body movement the way that we have been. So there has to be somewhat of an adjustment there, and try to figure out like what is best for the personnel that we have going forward. So there's a number of things I could say, but I want to be careful with that. But I do feel like that has to be something that is on the docket for the summer.
You mentioned it's difficult to say goodbyes and not have a sense of who's going to be here and who's not. Have you gotten a sense of like this organization looking at different changes with the way that the season ended? Or anything
No,
along
it's
those
too
lines?
early for that. It hadn't even been 24 hours since James and we always take some time to let things settle before you start making major decisions like that. Obviously, there's some things that we have to address, but to try to do that right after a game, I think that would be a bit premature.
Monty, the last three postseasons ended the same way. The last two games of the postseason, you guys have underperformed and lost. Do you see a systemic problem here somewhere, or are they different reasons and it just got the same results?
I wouldn't address it as systemic. I think anytime you lose in the playoffs, you're going to have the same feeling about it. Call it systemic, I think it's just part of competition and playing against the best teams in the league. And, it's one of those things that every team goes through it except one, and we're all feeling the same way. So if it was systemic, I guess it's systemic for everybody in the league except one team. So do whatever you want with that. You just have to try to figure out the things that you can get better at and work on it from a talent standpoint, from a system standpoint, from a style of play, and that's what we want to do.
Well, aside from the rest of the league, just looking at the Suns, the last two games of the finals, the last two games of the Dallas series, the last two games of this series was the same results. So that's why I'm asking if there's a problem here that goes beyond, because you're getting the same results. They're adjusting to you, they're doing things. Like last night, it looked like Denver really anticipated a lot of your passes and you had a lot of early turnovers. They're adjusting to what you do. So that's why I'm asking specifically.
And that's why I just told you that every time you lose a game, you lose it for various reasons.
Right.
We didn't lose it against Milwaukee because they adjusted to our passing. We lost to Milwaukee because they beat us, and Giannis had 50 points. We lost to Dallas because they had a great night against us. Last night we lost because they adjusted, we didn't make shots, and we were playing in transition a lot. If you're looking for someone to blame, you can look at me. You don't have to keep asking the same question over and over again. You're going to let me talk or you're going to keep talking?
No, go ahead.
So if you're going to try to boil it down to one thing, I don't think you can do that. The bottom line is we have been in the playoffs every year except one, and we come up short. That doesn't mean it's systemic or that there's this one problem. I think it's something that happens in sports. You're playing against the best teams, and you come up short, and you try to address it and move forward. And so that's what we're going to do.
Coach, aside
Last
from
two.
Last year after Game 7 loss to Dallas, Booker mentioned how the families of the players made sacrifices for them. Now it's time to make sacrifices for the families. Another day coming up. This is aside from basketball. What do you talk to the players about regarding family and how to regroup with them rather than just as basketball players, especially for the mothers?
I think anytime you play in an NBA season, you're going to sacrifice a lot of time away from your families. And I can speak for myself, all the kids I have and my wife, like they sacrifice a ton. And so the summertime is a time for us to reconnect, a time for us to sacrifice for them. And with Mother's Day coming up, it's a great time to show appreciation, not just to your wife or your mom, but others, especially the players. And so we always encourage our guys to fill their cup on off days, but especially in the summer. And with Mother's Day coming up, it's a great time to fill our mothers and wives and any mom that's in our life, fill their cup in a way that is unique and special. Because we're away a lot, and I know I miss out on a ton. I miss my kids, learning how to walk. I've missed teeth coming. I've missed games and recitals and all that stuff. And so when the summertime rolls around, you want to make sure you're intentional with your time. And with Mother's Day coming up, you want to make sure you're intentional on that day.
Coach, when you see how teams do coaches in the off season or even during the season, like example like Lake McMillan, like the way that happened, do you even concern yourself with as a coach like future and all that as far as you personally, or because of the way the league is in this?
You know what? It's something that I could sit here and give you the normal NBA speech, like I don't worry about my job and all that stuff, and it's not something I worry about, but it is a part of the economy. When you look at really good coaches who've lost their jobs shortly after winning a championship,
right.
That's something that is just different about our business. But I've always felt like I have to do my job, not worry about it. But you do scan the landscape and see what's going on, and you know that it could be a part of anybody's tenure, And so from my perspective, you do the best you can, and if things don't turn out the way you want them to, you can sleep and rest because you did the best you could, and that's all you can do. But I'm not closed-minded to what I've seen around the league. A lot of these guys who've lost their jobs, they're good friends of mine, and I know the types of coaches they are and the types of people they are. So it's just a part of our NBA economy.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks again, Coach.
Appreciate the time.